This is Holy Trinity, Anglican Church, Vancouver. Last Sunday I said, we have a lot to thank that man of Macedonia for, and also Paul's willingness to respond to his plea. For that's where our spiritual heritage is to be found. Acts 16:11. From Troas, we put out to sea and sailed straight for Samothrace, and the next day on to Neapolis. From there, we travelled to Philippi, a Roman colony and the leading city of that district of Macedonia. My mother wasn't really interested in reading any newspaper other than the Birmingham Evening Mail. On returning from the Durham Diocesan Conference held down south in Derbyshire, one of our party said, the Penshaw Monument. I don't really feel happy until I can see that again. I was to take the funeral of someone from Houghton Spring. Digging for info, I asked, where did he go on holiday? The reply, he went to Scarborough once and didn't like it. He never went away again. By comparison, Paul was quite the traveller. The man of Macedonia says, come over and help us. And Paul does. God says, jump. The appropriate response, it isn't why, rather, how high, Lord? Paul travels from Asia Minor to Europe unhesitatingly, and we have every reason to be grateful that he did. There's no synagogue in Philippi. That's where Paul would usually have gravitated to. But it's the Sabbath, and Paul isn't going to ignore the fact. Verse 13. On the Sabbath we went outside the city gate to the river, where we expected to find a place of prayer. How good are you at observing the Sabbath? It's Sunday morning and the sun's shining. Do you do A or B or C? I'll leave you to fill in what they might be, but I think you know what I'm driving at. I don't know what Paul's expectations were. He'd arrived in an unknown continent. Africa used to be known as the Dark Continent. That's what Europe was when Paul got there. There was no Christianity, none at all. Maybe that's hard for you to get your head around. It's hard for me to get my head around it. We've had 2 millennia of Christianity in Europe. But it all started with one encounter down by the riverside, Paul and Lydia. We sat down and began to speak to the women who had gathered there. One of those listening was a woman named Lydia. God's purposes, dear friends, don't despise them. Don't ignore them. It's said that the devil's in the detail, but God can be there too. From little acorns, mighty oaks may grow. Be open to God's prompting, God's purposes. Paul was, and so was Lydia, whom he met down by the riverside. Lydia was listening, thank God. Are you? Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. Lydia was a dealer in purple cloth. You may think, so what, or good for her. Either way, you're missing the point that Luke is making by mentioning this. Purple cloth meant rich. She's in the luxury goods trade. God has a heart for the poor, but he also has a heart for everybody else, including the Lydias of this world. Verse 14. The Lord opened her heart to respond to Paul's message. St. Teresa of Avila said, Christ has no body now but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. To which I say, yes, but God is in control nonetheless. The Lord opened her heart to respond to Paul's message. Paul brought the message, a message about Christ, but it was the Lord who opened Lydia's heart to respond to it. All we can do is nothing worth unless God blesses the deed. Vainly we hope for the harvest tide till God gives life to the seed. Verse 50. Lydia and members of her household were baptized. Matthew's Gospel account ends with Jesus' great commission. Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. In 1989, I'm showing my age, Linda Ronstadt and Aaron Neville sang, I don't know much. The rector doesn't know much either. But I do know that Jesus told us to make disciples and baptize them. And that's what I endeavour to do. And that's what Paul did, down by the riverside. Verse 50. Lydia invited us to her home. A dealer in purple cloth has, because she is a dealer in purple cloth, a home that can accommodate guests. God has a heart for the poor, but he also has a heart for everybody else, including the Lydias of this world, and he can use what they have to offer. In this case, a home from which Paul can do ministry. I'm not a great fan of the song, One More Step Along the World I Go. If you don't know it, perhaps ignorance is bliss. And yet, isn't it true that God's kingdom is built one step at a time? Paul made the journey from Asia Minor to Europe, the dark continent. On the Sabbath, he went down by the riverside. He spoke to the women who had gathered there, and Lydia listened. In 1978, your rector watched the BBC TV series Connections. In it, the historian James Burke drew links between events. This happened, and because of that, this happened. We have much to thank Paul for. We have much to thank Lydia for. We are what we are because of that brief, God-intended encounter. Give thanks to God for it, and look out for what God may wish to be doing next, even through you. Christ has no hands, no feet on earth, but yours. Mighty oaks from little acorns grow. Amen.